Alright, good afternoon, everybody. I know there's been a lot of these fights back and forth on Twitter about the Hasidic schools, and I made another video about this, but I think sometimes it's hard to really communicate properly on Twitter, and when we go face to face and we talk like this, we come out with a different way, but the real issue I think that we keep seeing here is, well, do we trust parents enough to raise their kids, or do we have to go back to the government, this cradle-to-grave socialist ideology that the nanny state knows better than a child's parents? And my argument also within the current laws are that a private school has to provide substantial equivalence to public schools, and my answer is that, like most private schools, the yeshivas provide substantial superiority to public schools, and that's why parents are moiser nefesh, why they engage in self-sacrifice. It's very difficult, but they choose to send their children to these schools because they're superior, at least in the opinion of these parents, to the public schools. I mean, how do you gauge substantial equivalence? It's a nebulous concept, and it's purposely so because it's there to be open to interpretation. And legally, I would say that it's to interpret substantial equivalence. I mean, what's taught in the Talmud, this is college level stuff. This is graduate level stuff. This is PhD level stuff. I mean, the biggest secular scholars can barely handle the depth and breadth and beauty and so forth in the scholarship of the Talmud, because it's a very complicated type of study. That's and yet our kids, this is what we teach them, because it's the way to think. It teaches you critical thinking skills, and it contains within it all of these aspects. It's not, a lot of people think, it's like you're just sitting and saying Psalms all day or something, which is a beautiful thing, and that is part of our day, but it's not what we do all day. But it's a rigorous intellectual exercise of studying the Talmud, and it contains language arts, mathematics, history, science, and in addition to those, ethics and morals, a guideline for life. That's what we're studying. It's not just sitting in the, I mean, there was a case in Texas where a homeschool family was accused. I don't know whatever happened with this case, but it was a homeschool family, and they were accused of not teaching their children anything. They just what they did for what they called homeschool was they were singing Christian songs all day long. They had a band, and they sang Christian songs all day long. This is what the accusation was made against them. I doubt the accusation was true, first of all. But second of all, even if it was, I would say this is within the realm of the rights of the parents to raise their kids as they see fit, according to the dictates of their conscience, according to the First Amendment religious liberties. And I believe in the end the Supreme Court found in favor of the parents, and that they had the right to do this. The same thing we have the story of the Yoder versus the state of Ohio, I believe, with the Amish, also, they have a different way of raising their children. And so too, these communities have a different way of raising their children. They have a different culture. And within that culture, you can exist. All right, maybe you're not going to be able to manage in the secular culture. And it's designed like that to preserve the culture. And if the kids grow up and decide they want to leave, yes, it's true. It's not so easy, but that's their choice as adults. And it's a free country. But to say that parents don't have the right to raise their children the way they see fit, you're so much smarter than these, tens of thousands of parents who want to raise their kids in a particular way. And just because you don't like it, maybe you grew up like that and you didn't like it personally, means that you want to deny religious rights to these other people, meaning you have the freedom and rights to leave and to do things your own way. And that's fine. That's totally within the line of the American freedoms that we all cherish, that you are free to leave. Once you're an adult, you're free. Maybe it's difficult. Maybe you're going to have to put in a little bit extra effort than other people would have to try to fit in and this and that. But the end of the story is you're free to leave. And just like you're free, and you're free if you choose to get married and have children, or you choose to have children and not be married. That's your business. It's not my business what you do. Even if I think something is wrong, it's not my business. You do your thing, and I do my thing, and we leave each other alone, and you mind your own business. And you don't get involved in how someone else is raising their kids. And to, go and say it's a cult and this and that. It's a different culture, it's a different way of lifestyle. And that's what America is all about. We preserve and protect the rights of people to do that. The government is under no compulsion to help to maintain these cultures and lifestyles, but they are also not allowed to destroy these cultures and lifestyles. People have the freedom of religion and the freedom of association as individuals. Children can't make these decisions for their own, and it's not the government's job to make decisions for parents. Parents make the decisions how they're raising their children, as long as they're doing things legally, which they are. And you cannot make unjust laws, and you cannot compare. To make laws like this would be unconstitutional, and you cannot compare it to abuse. It is not abuse. It's a different lifestyle. It's a different culture, and the parents are choosing to raise their kids in this lifestyle, in this culture. And a lot of kids, when they grow up, they decide to keep it. Most of them who are raised in this, and some people who are not raised in this choose to adopt this. A lot of people, because people who have seen what the secular world is, and they know what it's all about, and they recognize that this is a really good way of life. The way that the Hasidic community is, there's a story of, there's a lot of stories of people who were within this community who maybe have lost their faith. And the one guy, he told Shalom Dean that he was thinking of leaving, but then he said, "Look, this is a perfect way of life. I don't have to worry that this guy." He told Shalom Dean, "He's privately, secretly a heretic. This guy." He doesn't believe, but he lives this lifestyle because it's such a good lifestyle. And he said, he doesn't have to worry about his kids being on drugs or being, getting pregnant out of wedlock and all these things, the way that the secular world does. We're doing something right. And that's not to say there aren't drug problems and there aren't these types of problems in our community, but they're very few and far between. And it's not from the community, it's not because of the community, it's because the outside world is trying to infiltrate and destroy these communities, and it's a constant war and battle. And this is why I believe that all the religious communities and all libertarian people who care about freedom and liberty should be united to protect one another against these threats from the secularists. As much as people worried about missionaries, this and that, the real danger is not the missionaries who are converting Jews to Christianity, because first of all, it's almost no harm, no foul. To be honest, it's not the worst thing in the world. That's the first thing. What's much more dangerous is the missionaries who want to convert Jews to atheism, who want to convert Jews to agnosticism, who want to take away all the basic values, the Judeo-Christian values that this country was founded on. And while yes, it's a shame, in my opinion, as a pious Jew, if a Jew converts to Christianity, but it doesn't bother me that much. I only say that because I'm supposed to say that. But personally, I work with Christians and with Muslims, and we're not that different. And the real enemy are the secularists, are the communists, the socialists, the secularists who want to destroy. And the problem is that these groups have infiltrated the religious communities, all the religious communities, and that's why you have abuse within the religious communities. It has nothing to do with the religion, the abuse cases. Bishop Fulton Sheen documented this during the 1950s when they were investigating communist infiltration in America, and it was and there was a woman who he converted to Catholicism, who was a major leading communist spy infiltrator, fifth columnist from Russia, who was talking about how the Soviet government was infiltrating the religious communities, and specifically bringing sexual perversion into these communities, planting these people into these communities to infect and destroy the communities. And so that's where these things come from, if they're even true. And I would say probably 90% of the claims that are made against any religious community, not only the Jewish community, but the other religious communities, are mostly false claims. I've seen it. I've seen innocent men go to prison for 30 years, 105 years, this and that, because there was someone who hated religion and wanted to take revenge against the communities, the religious communities. And that's real. And those people who made these false accusations belong in prison, not these innocent men who were framed. And I work in prison, and I work with a lot of sex offenders, and who's really, a dangerous person, and who was framed, and who was, or set up in like a sting operation where they were almost entrapped. And these are the types of things that are going on. And the problem with it is that when the real abusers happen, it makes it a lot easier for the real abusers to go. I remember this one guy, Hasidic Bacher, in German, and he had hundreds of victims, and he should never see the light of day. But because he made a plea bargain and pled guilty, he got 5 years. He belongs in prison for the rest of his life. It's an upside down world that you plead guilty and you get away with it, but if you're innocent and there's no evidence that you did anything, and you plead innocent, and you have a bigoted jury, instead of a jury of your peers, you have a jury of people who hate Hasidic Jews, and then you get thrown with 105 years for something that wasn't done, and that the victim's actual abuser, who she wound up marrying, and she has some kind of what do they call it, Copenhagen Syndrome, Stockholm Syndrome with him, and he said that he would take revenge on the Hasidic community and make up lies like this? And why isn't he in prison? And that's what goes on. So, and these types of communists infiltrating the communities, making false accusations, and when you make a false accusation, you wind up enabling the real criminals more, because then they can say, oh, look, everybody knows so-and-so was framed. It's a really, really dangerous situation that we have. And but these attacks on freedom, this is, it's like they were saying on the Glenn Beck show today or yesterday. I don't know. I was listening to the podcast, and they said, someone called in and said, they want to take away someone's guns for 30 days. It's like, you imagine you take away somebody's freedom of speech for 30 days. You're not allowed to talk for 30 days. Can you imagine such a thing? You're not allowed to go to church for 30 days. What are you talking about? Taking away guns for 30 days? We have a constitutional right to bear arms. It's and again, in the free market, you want to see change in the yeshivas. Do it in the grassroots way. Either talk to your, if if you have a group of parents who are sincerely not happy with the way the yeshivas are operating, money talks. You get together, you tell the Hanhala, we want this, and we don't want the government to be involved, because if the government gets involved, then they're going to be pushing sex education and all kinds of toyevas and kfira. But we want a little bit more English, or we want at least a chabura for certain boys that they should have more English. That's the way to do these things, not to get the government involved. I mean, haven't you learned anything from Jewish history? You get the government involved in these things, it destroys everything. If you want to change, you talk to the administrators of your school, you get a group of parents together, you say, this is what we want, or else we're leaving. And they could say, fine, leave, and you can leave. And you open your own school, and you have enough parents together, and you pull your money together, you hire teachers, and you do it. That's how you do these things in America. Not go and get, especially in New York City, where you have de Blasio is a communist. It's so scary. You don't see what's going to happen if you get the government involved, and then they're going to force that type of things that the religion does not allow, according to any opinion. They're going to force them on the Catholic schools and the evangelical schools and the Muslim schools, and then they're going to blame the Jews. Don't get the government involved. You want to get something like this changed, you do it that way. Or the other thing you can do is you make an after-school program. You make a GED program, something the parents can get together and form some kind of a group where you're teaching these things to your sons, if that's what you want. But it's the choice of your parents. It's not the choice of the government to impose these things on us. That's my only beef. And the truth, and if there's a small group who believe in their sincerely held religious beliefs, even if all the other rabbis disagree, but you have this one group and they believe that it's totally treif, totally not kosher to learn any English, they are following the dictates of their religious beliefs, because America has no right to say, oh, this rabbi's right and this rabbi's wrong. That's not how America works. We don't have a chief rabbi. That would be a violation of the Establishment Clause. Each community has to follow their own rabbis, and each individual has to follow the dictates of their own conscience. That's how America works. And if you're really not happy, you have choices other than going to the government. But you're not going to force every community to do this. All you can do is introduce your ideas, and you see where it goes. You can maybe, and maybe you work together with Touro College, or something to make, like Bobov did with Machon Leparnasa, You could do it. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. We'll see you later.